So we did a dumb little experiment, frankly, this week on necrotic. Last time we did necrotic week. Some viewers, I think it was Tagor, but others also were talking about the old days of season 4 of BFA with this trinket. Okay, this is a trinket that gets added in season 3 of BFA, and I guess it probably existed and was useful then as well. But I don't remember really benefiting from it until season 4. In fact, I don't even think I took it off for much of season 4. It's the pocket-sized computation device. You can put those red cards. They have different options. So Weekor is still working for it, but the one I'm using currently is taking physical damage grants 3 dodge for 6 seconds, and this affects stacks. Okay, so in the past, I mean, this was obviously a victim of the stat squish. I doubt it was 3. It actually says 4 dodge on the trinket, but regardless, it used to proc up to, I think it was like, you'd get about 30% dodge. Okay. And, you know, a lot of people who are probably new to the game don't understand that back in, you know, probably like 10 plus years ago, if you were a tank, you wanted stats like dodge and parry and higher armor. Those stats were your main stats. Block on as a warrior. This is how you tanked. Having haste and crit and mastery, which didn't exist really at the time, those were not tank stats. Those were DPS stats. And for a long time, gear that had dodge and other stats that were defensive on it was the main way you mitigated damage, because you didn't have things that were considered active mitigation. So gone are the days of this passive mitigation rush, but it's ironic because I think probably even to this day, passive mitigation is probably the best advice that I can give for many people. And, you know, I myself subscribe to this heavily. I think it's a lot of the reason why I play the way I do is because I kind of grew up in a time when just setting yourself up to be as passively strong as possible was the most effective way to tank. And then you would worry about 1 or 2 small active things. Back then it was mostly threat. And that would be that. That's as much as you can do. Like, obviously, in the early days of Warrior, you didn't really have any defensive spells or anything you could do to increase your actual survivability. You just set yourself up passively, and that's that. So I have this special place in my heart for a trinket like this, but in BFA, it was incredibly powerful. It was very powerful because you'd basically almost always have a large amount of the stacks. And like I said, that would take you somewhere close to, I think it would be above 30. We looked at it on stream. The number is not relevant because that doesn't exist anymore. So it was asked about last time we did a necrotic week. Famously, I despise necrotic weeks. It's the least fun thing that I can do in keys. Because I hate kiting. I honestly kind of just refuse stubbornly to kite at times. I'd rather die, to be honest, which is not good, but I just don't enjoy it. It's not fun. It's not why I play a character that can tank. So I'm looking for ways that I can circumvent kiting at all costs. Luckily, in season 2 of BFA, Blood DK has become a lot stronger. Still struggling with necrotic, but you know, some changes are coming in 915, so we'll see what ultimately happens. So anyway, that mindset brought me to this trinket thanks to some viewers' recommendations. I said, you know, why don't you try the trinket? Because it was so powerful in BFA. In fact, if you go back and look, which is in my spreadsheet, you can go back and look at necrotic keys in BFA. You will see that there's many times when it actually just drops stacks in the middle of trash packs. Now that is the holy grail. Okay, if that was possible in Shadowlands keys, I would do anything to achieve that, including trying a trinket that has nothing on it but the ability to potentially give me that. Okay, sadly, it doesn't give me that. Now we only get about 10% dodge, and I don't know if that's because of a stat squish or if it's because of some scaling factor. I don't fully know. If anybody does actually know and not just has some opinion on it, I'd be interested in hearing. Like, if anybody has this on a level 50 still and you could try it, let me know, because I'd be interested in knowing if there's any way to continue working on this. But I either way, I don't imagine there's much to be discussed. But I'm very interested in discussing it anyway, because this is my thought process. Even before I tried it out, and you know, regardless of what the results were, I was thinking, I can do these keys with 1 trinket. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the trinkets I normally use are the Aegis, which is a very defensive-oriented trinket. This one also has Leech, but it's got 98 strength on it. You know, it's not going to do 0 damage, but the value of it is wholly defensive, and it's a massive absorb. So not really that useful on necrotic week. I basically am forced to use it on the pull, and If you ever watch me play, I always have a lot of CDs up on the pole, so it's kind of not very good for necrotic week. Now this trinket, whether it's as good as I say it is or not, I don't really know, but it does seem to be performing very well for me regardless on necrotic week. So I'm keeping this one on one way or the other. So I ended up taking off the 252 trinket, lost 98 strength, 52 leech, and all the other value, all in the name of trying to get less necrotic stacks. Now, here's my mindset on this. If I could prevent the necrotic stacks from complicating my ability to tank the dungeon, then everything else is worth it. And like I said, I can easily do this dungeon, like in terms of the tank's role, without a single trinket on. I mean, probably both trinkets could be off, and I would still have no problem doing keys at times, especially on a tyrannical week. On a tyrannical week, survival is pretty much assured. So necrotic is the only thing that's going to complicate my life. It will complicate it greatly, but the pack itself shouldn't be that difficult. To the end that I've fought packs with like 60 plus stacks and still finished the pack alive. So it's really just whether or not I can outlast necrotic. So on paper, anything that will give me more of an ability to do that seems like it's worth it. Now, 10% dodge, unfortunately, just didn't give me enough. It never gave me the opportunity to drop stacks organically. It never really felt like it was slowing the application of stacks. They made the change in 9.1 where lieutenant mobs, anything 61 gives less than, it's like a 50% chance to apply a necrotic stack. So certainly that's far more beneficial than just dodging 10% of the auto attacks. And you don't even always have the 10%, whatever it would be with this trinket, because it just doesn't get that high that quickly. You have to wait for time to pass. So yes, the trinket has nothing else on it. It has 26 versatility and 8 crit. At least this version. You could change the yellow card as well. And the blue card is very much just a utility focus. So I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts. Like, is there a case where you would do something that would be severely hindering your ability to do, maybe your all-around play, but to sell out to guarantee that something very specific didn't occur to you? And that was what brought me to this trinket, and what allured me to the idea, because I was thinking, like, man, if I can just remove necrotic, this is the easiest week in the game. And there's a tank that can. That's the Bear Druid. And honestly, if I play Kyrian or play with Kyrian who could remove the stacks for me, like I had happen this week in Keys, the effects is effectively nothing. If I was a dwarf, if I was a paladin, somebody with control over it myself, I yearn for that life. Unfortunately, that life is not here. So let's take a look at the footage here. We have an interesting, so this is going to be with the trinket on. So I'm just going to go through this footage because I'm interested in just talking about it. You're going to see how the stacks apply. It stacks up relatively quick, but it's got to go all the way to 99. And I want you to pay attention to this number, but I also want you to pay attention to this number, okay? Because, 4 and eventually 10% dodge, when you're fighting a boss, which should already be giving you much less stacks than a normal, like normal 3 enemies. In normal 3 trash pack, it's going to obviously apply it much quicker. It's shockingly applying it really quick, even with the dodge. And, you can see potentially the lack of dodges coming through here. That's not ideal. I'm sure there's probably some miss. I don't really know how this stuff shows up, but as you see, we are now at 20 stacks. I wish I had a timer because I'd like to see how long it takes me to get to 20 stacks, but and again, we just miss a reset there, so that's really big. Now the big thing about this trinket in BFA was that you would get a lot of parry from Dancing Rune Weapon, and you would also get a lot of dodge from the trinket. So effectively you'd be at what used to be called combat table coverage, meaning every single auto attack was reduced in some way. And that was before with Prop Paladin, that was 20% dodge, I think it was 30% parry and 50% block, and that was combat table coverage. Every auto attack would be reduced in some way. That was actually attainable again with Paladin. So you see here, this is a complete mess. But my point is at how quickly we get to 20 stacks. Okay, so that is with, 12%. Now, so the problem is you get 10% dodge from the trinket, about less than 10%, but you start with 3% dodge. You always start with 3% dodge. So that's what this looks like with the trinket. Okay, and the reason we're looking at this boss, this is the only actual boss in the video game that necrotic is difficult on. And it would be, again, a run-defining circumstance if you could easily drop stacks on this fight without having to do absurd things. So now that is that pull with the trinket on, and this is a pull with the trinket off, and you will see no real difference. It's almost like I'm not dodging anything. So I mean, I'm getting dodge, presumably, but the stacks are still, here we go. So we're fighting 10 coming up here. Actually, things are even dying faster in this group, so we're gonna have even less time with the Bloodhorn, but yeah, still on our way to 20. We still haven't gotten there. It could be some randomness too, because of course, like I said, it's only a 50% chance to get auto attacked, but we eventually get to 20. So I wish I did have a timer on the screen, but yeah, not too different. I mean, maybe we could see, but a bit late now. So yeah, you can tell. Obviously, you can just look at it in post and check if you really want, but yeah, in reality, I don't think I gained anything, no practical gain anyway. Obviously, like a theoretical gain is there. The dodge did exist, presumably. I mean, unless it's somehow bugged. It did allow me to dodge 10% plus of the spells or the attacks that I wouldn't have dodged in this version, but it didn't help me at all. It did not make any impact on my ability to deal with necrotic. And yeah, even with Dancing Rune Weapon up, I still struggled to drop stacks on that first pack, and ultimately only dropped stacks on this one because the boss fixates on somebody else. So the problem with this boss is that nobody ever kills this guy or helps me deal with him. So he's just constantly auto-attacking me and applying a healing debuff on top of necrotic, which is very bad. So that's just a bit of an interesting discussion. I'm very interested in hearing anyone who thinks they have an opinion on this. Like the criticism I got kind of really roasted for even trying it, which is fucking embarrassing, to be honest. Like, listen, if you're playing this game and you're taking everything that serious that you can't even try interesting ideas, then you probably are not as good as you think you are. Let's put it that way. But I thought it was interesting enough to give a try, and obviously this trinket does nothing other than give me 10% dodge. I mean, 26 versatility is nothing. So, but to be honest, this trinket doesn't really do anything either other than give me defense. I mean, it gives me 98 strength though, which is a big difference, and probably ultimately the deciding factor into considering nothing other than a modern trinket. The secondary stats, or whatever it does on the actual effect, that could do nothing for the whole run, but just getting even the leech too, but also the strength, that will improve my overall. But I think a lot of people look at trinkets in the wrong vein. Like, to me, the trinket slot is the only interesting choice you have as a tank. Almost everything else you do is quite formulaic. Like, I can't really change. Well, that's not true. This time around we have these gems and everything, but like, I can't really change that belt. That's the highest item level belt I have. It has haste and versatility on it, and there's nothing special about that. That's just a belt that I got and I'm wearing. But trinkets you can change. You can use the offensive trinket, you can use the defensive trinket, you can use something like a cheat death trinket, which ironically a lot of tanks do take, and it does fucking nothing if they don't die. Which I've been saying for probably 6 months is a wasted trinket. Like, I think, personally, that you should always be in a state of control of your own health, that if you die, it's always a mistake on your part. And very good players disagree with me and say they would rather take a trinket that has the potential to save their lives if they make a mistake than a trinket that will definitely impact their success. So I don't think it's that crazy. So let me know what you think about the idea. And I don't think there's anything else in the game other than this. I was really hoping that Chromie Time was going to open some doors when they added the philosophy of every single thing scaling up in BFA, the end of BFA there. There was actually items that could scale up again thanks to crafting and other stuff. One of them was Nightfall, the very known two-handed weapon that would make all casters deal a lot more damage. And that, I was considering wearing that as a blood DK because I was like, man, that could actually be huge. Then they made it only work for level 49. So I don't think there's anything else like that out there in the game. And I'm honestly surprised it still works, but this might be why it's only giving 10% dodge instead of 30. Do I think it would be worth trying at 30? I think I would try it at 30, yes. I think if I can actually see the benefits, like 30% dodge is nuts. Like, I'm telling you, you don't understand it. If you're skeptical and you're hearing this and you're surprised by this, you don't understand how great dodging 30% of the attacks are. For reference, okay? For reference, the spell Dancing Rune Weapon, one of the major CDs the class offers, gives you 40% parry. A 2-minute cooldown, okay? This trinket would effectively have given you 30+% dodge for probably like 80% of the trash that you're fighting. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So let me know what you think. I thought it was an interesting test, and yeah, I guess the conclusion is there. It's just not going to help me enough to actually justify doing nothing else with the trinket slot. But again, remember, at least from what I can tell, I can easily do dungeons without a trinket. And this one's basically not doing anything a lot of the times. Like, I can't use it if I have a lot of necrotic stacks. It doesn't help me with necrotic whatsoever. And half the time I use it, I just use it on the pole just because it's a trinket that I have on. And there's not a lot of other great options. So anyway, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. We're going to see you guys in the next video or live stream or something else. I don't know.